Kicking off like we usually do with Joey Dwyer, what to watch for. Vanderbilt and Auburn. The Auburn Tigers rolling into Nashville, Joey, as a 12.5 point favorite. I think I saw it as yesterday. So intriguing game, honestly. I mean, a couple of quarterback rooms that are in flux, I guess you could say. You've seen four quarterbacks total between these two teams this year. And I'm sure you'll see four quarterbacks on Saturday with Robbie Ashford and also Peyton Thorne for Auburn. So, but on the Vanderbilt side, Joey, your first thing to watch is how does a two quarterback system work for them? It didn't work against Ole Miss, but I don't know that they really utilized that. They just kind of put Walter Taylor in and said, hey, go be Mike Wright of last year, basically. And I think that can work, right? They're not going to score a ton of points, Joey, but we might see a little more Walter Taylor. But the question is, how much of Ken Seals do we see, and do we actually see a two quarterback system?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see kind of how they play this. Clark Lee said on the SEC coaches conference on Wednesday that he's going to go towards this system. And he's going to play two quarterbacks. So, Billy, I'm really fascinated to see how this works and how much he mixes in Walter Taylor. Is it just on a 3rd and 1 here or there, or does he get a few drives in a row and get in a rhythm? He said he wants both quarterbacks to stay in a rhythm. It's hard to see how you execute that, but if you can execute that well, I think that can give Vanderbilt a real spark. And maybe the biggest thing with Walter Taylor is they can control the time of possession a little more. I think that would be a huge key on Saturday this weekend. I think if Vanderbilt can control the ball and Ken Seals can throw it down the field and maybe Walter Taylor can do the same thing, you got a chance here. It's a hard system to execute. There's a reason that all these big schools don't use it consistently, but maybe it can spark you a little bit and maybe it can add a dimension to your offense that you haven't seen before. So I'm not completely out on it. There's also a reason that Georgia doesn't use it every week, but there's a chance that maybe this sparks Vanderbilt, and I think you're trying to find anything that you can kind of throw at the wall and have stick at this point.
Exactly. That's how he described Walter Taylor. He said, basically, we wanted a spark, and that's understandable. I mean, where they were at Ole Miss offensively. Leading into the second point here, Joey, can Vanderbilt extend drives on 3rd and 4th downs? They've just been awful, quite frankly, on 3rd downs. On the defensive side as well, right? It's the polar opposite. Like on defense, the opposing offense has been able to convert on 3rd and 15, but Vanderbilt, they can't convert on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, right? And you're not going to be in ball games, especially in the SEC down the stretch of the season when these teams need these wins, whether it's Vanderbilt or not. So they have to. I mean, that's a non-negotiable, right? I mean, if you're not converting on 3rd down at a decent clip, no matter who you're playing in the SEC, you're putting yourself way behind the 8 ball because there's no. I mean, what are you leaning on, right? You're relying on defensive takeaways at that point.
Yeah, I don't know, Billy. I think when you go 6 for 34 on 3rd down throughout the last 3 or 4 games, you're not going to win anything, or you're not going to get close to winning. Also on 4th down, they've not been good either. So it's really difficult to find ways to win games like this. And Billy, I don't know how you do it if you go 6 for 34 on 3rd down. If you can't run the ball, I think Walter Taylor could maybe help you a little bit on 3rd down. Maybe he's the spark plug you need there. Maybe he kind of complements that run game a little bit by running it himself and complements the passing game. Maybe AJ Newberry's a guy who can help you a little bit there. He had some good runs on Saturday, but I don't know. I think Auburn's defense is probably a step below what they've seen recently. But if you don't convert on 3rd down, you don't convert on 4th down and extend drives, you don't have an opportunity to exploit that. Really explosive plays are going to be a key here, but also just keeping that time of possession and having the ball throughout a lot of this game and having the opportunities to have those explosive plays will be really significant as Vanderbilt tries to pull its biggest upset of the year, I guess, and get its first SEC win.
One of those guys offensively for Vanderbilt, Joey, is Will Sheppard, that they have to have doing good things. You only saw 1 catch against Georgia. I don't even know. I mean, he might have had a catch or 2 against Ole Miss. He might not have, though. I mean, the thing about Will Sheppard is that you do see those stretches where he's just not really on the field. So that'll be interesting to see if Sheppard goes. Clark said he's banged up this week. CJ Taylor is another guy that Clark didn't really give a definitive answer, but I mean, those are the 2 guys. I mean, those are the 2 best players, Joey, for Vanderbilt. So if they don't go, kind of sitting there saying, well, where's the hope? But if they do, especially against Auburn, I think they've got a shot. So that's a big question. That might be the biggest question, Joey. Do Sheppard and Taylor go? Because, they might need them.
Yeah, Vanderbilt doesn't have a whole lot of guys who would start on other SEC teams or guys who are pushing for all SEC league teams. When two of those guys are not on the field, I think you're in real trouble. And feels like the game where you have to have them on the field because
Mm-hmm.
this is the game you have a legitimate chance at winning. If you don't have C.J. Taylor, who's your biggest defensive playmaker, and Will Sheppard, who's at least your most talented offensive player, maybe your biggest offensive playmaker as well, I don't really know how you move forward here. I think this is a really interesting storyline to follow. I think it's really important for Vanderbilt. I guess they could get by offensively because they have other good receivers. But C.J. Taylor is such a difference maker on that defense. And I think we saw that Saturday. We saw that right before he went down against Georgia as well. He masks a lot of the errors that they have on defense and a lot of deficiencies that they have. And they could have got exploited more than they did on Saturday, but didn't. C.J. Taylor, I think, is a huge difference maker for this defense and is perhaps Vanderbilt's most important player. So if they're without him again, I think my level of optimism here goes down a little bit. But if they have Sheppard and Taylor, I think they got a chance even if they're not 100% healthy.
So let's go over to the flip side for Auburn and their offense. This has not been a very dynamic Auburn offense. Statistically, they're averaging 26 points per game, 186 rushing yards per game, 160 passing yards per game. So, I mean, this might be a slugfest here. 13-10, 17-14. I mean, it screams low scoring. But as soon as I say that, we could get a lot of points. So who knows? But at the end of the day, Joey, both these offenses have been struggling. And for Auburn, you look at this Vanderbilt defense, maybe having a decent matchup, send some pressure, maybe disrupt the Auburn quarterback running game and try to slow them down that way. Because, I mean, both quarterbacks want to run. Peyton Thorne is more of a passer. Ashford is all a runner. And in the red zone, they call him Red Zone Robbie. He runs the football for them. So if they can disrupt those guys, that's what I look at defensively and offensively against Auburn. Because, if you can't, that's what they want to do. If you can't stop it, you got no shot.
For me, I think the key is making Auburn one-dimensional offensively. I think the running game is going to be there. Vanderbilt's really struggled to stop the run, so I don't have much optimism that can turn. Maybe with C.J. Taylor and Langston Patterson playing the way he did on Saturday, I think they have a chance maybe there. But really where I look is kind of slowing down the passing game. I think I said in the article, Auburn had 3 games this year under 100 passing yards and a few other games under 200 passing yards, like 5 under 200. That tells you a lot about where that offense stands. And a lot of those games have been pretty recent as well. The stats are ugly from those games. And Vanderbilt's secondary has obviously been a point of contention, but maybe that passing game kind of equals that out. And maybe we see Auburn not have a super explosive day through the air. And if it has to beat Vanderbilt through the ground exclusively, I think Vanderbilt's got a chance here. But if Vanderbilt allows some big passing plays, you're in trouble.
All right. Lastly here, Joey, can Vanderbilt take advantage of its best chance at an SEC win? The Auburn Tigers roll in here at 4-4, but they are 1-4 in the conference. So they've struggled in the SEC. They've gotten some non-conference wins. And you look at Auburn, historically, Vanderbilt has had success at Auburn at home. They beat them in 2013, I want to say it was, and then 2008 as well. So now this Auburn team is different than those teams, but this is not your dominant Auburn team that you're typically maybe used to seeing. I mean, they haven't been dominant in a while, but for Vanderbilt, this is a winnable game. Now, whether or not they take advantage of that, we'll see. But the opportunity is there, Joey. And this season, anytime we've said that, they have not taken advantage. So I'm looking for them to just say, listen, guys, let's throw it all out there and see what happens. I mean, you got 3 games left, and Auburn and South Carolina are the 2 winnable games in our opinions. So we'll see. We'll see, Joe. But it'll be interesting to see, can they take advantage? What you got 2 more chances. This is number 1 right here.
Yeah, the final home game of the year. Feels like we've had this one circled on the schedule for a long time as one that Vanderbilt could get. Auburn's passing game feels somewhat equivalent to Vanderbilt's running game. It just can't get it going, and that's a huge red flag for an SEC team. Obviously, Auburn really hasn't done much in SEC play. I think only beat Mississippi State, who has also not been good. So Vanderbilt's got a chance here. Whether it can kind of stay in this game and win it will be determined by a lot of what we talked about. And I think if it can get a spark early and kind of punch Auburn in the face early, it has a real chance here. If it can build off that energy, it gets early. But there's a lot to watch here. If Vanderbilt can win this game, though, I think it maybe doesn't change your outlook of the season or what this team is. I would think of that as more of an outlier performance from this team, just finding an SEC win, because frankly they haven't looked like a team throughout most of the year that deserves an SEC win. But if they could go get one and prove that, I guess, they're not lost and the locker room isn't completely lost, then I think that says a lot of good things about Clark Lee and the direction that this is going. If they finish 2-10 though and lose by double digits like the spread would indicate this week, I think that's a different story and something at the end of the year that we'll have to reflect on, and we won't have anything positive to point back to beyond the first 2 weeks. So big game for Vanderbilt, and about as big as it gets when you're 2-7.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a big one. Vanderbilt and Auburn, 3:00 kickoff, so a little bit later. I think we've had that 11 a.m. Kentucky one, but this is a nice kickoff time. It'll be a little bit colder, but I think it'll warm up a little bit compared to these last few days here in town. Auburn and Vandy, 3:00 SEC Network. Joey, thanks for taking the time, man. We got basketball next week.
Thank you.
Closing out this Vanderbilt-Auburn pregame show with Jason Campbell, the winningest quarterback in Auburn history, SEC Player of the Year in 2004, SEC champ that same season, Sugar Bowl MVP, played for the Tigers from 01 to 04, and then was drafted 25th overall, first round to Washington. Of course, they were the Redskins back in the day. Now they're the Commanders. So looking forward to getting Jason's insight on Auburn this year. Stan White, their longtime color analyst, retired last year there in the Auburn booth, and Jason Campbell has taken over this year with Andy Burcham. So they will be up in Nashville on Saturday. Jason, thanks for taking the time, man.
Thanks, Billy. Thanks for having me on. Like I said, look forward to it. It's been cold here. I'm used to some 80-degree weather, man. So we'll see what happens in Nashville this weekend.
Yeah, hopefully it warms up a little bit for Vandy and Auburn. 3:00 kickoff on the SEC Network. Jason, let's start with the Auburn Tigers this season. Of course, Hugh Freeze in year one. He's been in the SEC before, and I'm sure at times it's been entertaining, and you've had some good games to cover there. The Georgia game was tight, and even that Ole Miss game a couple of weeks ago, and then they were able to get a win last week. So what's it been like? I'm sure it's been, year one for coaches, especially in the SEC, are usually, kind of a roller coaster ride. But what's it been like covering Hugh Freeze this year?
It's been a lot of fun. I will say he's been a breath of fresh air. He brings a lot of new energy to the program. Auburn went through 2 years where it was just really rough. And then that was right after a COVID year, which a lot of things was going on for every university that year. So he's kind of trying to rebuild the program. He's hot in recruiting. The other part of it is getting all the kids to buy in. You got all these transfer kids and the kids that are here now, just trying to get everyone on the same page and everyone to understand what it is that he's looking for. That all takes time, and you have to be patient. And I know Auburn is so hungry right now to be back in competition for competing for championships, but we also have to understand reality. Like, you got to build that roster. You also got to, just continue to focus on, building blocks one step at a time. So it's been really fun to watch him. Of course, he had some heartbreak games so far this year. The Georgia game, kids fought their butts off, and then Brock Bowers got loose in the fourth quarter. Ole Miss game is 14-14 into the third quarter, and you have so many opportunities offensively to kind of get ahead in that game. It seemed like you just kept hitting yourself against the wall and just never could get over the hump. And then you was finally able to beat Mississippi State this past weekend. So hopefully, that win gave those kids a little bit of confidence.
Jason, you played quarterback at Auburn and of course, in the NFL for a long time. When you look at the quarterback situation this season, of course, Peyton Thorne coming in, it felt like he was kind of eyed as, okay, we're going to see what we got in Peyton, but we've also got Robbie Ashford right behind him. We've heard the nickname Red Zone Robbie. Of course, you've seen him score some rushing touchdowns. So what's it been like keeping an eye on that? And what has been their approach? Have there been games where it's been mostly Thorne or mostly Ashford? Like what's that quarterback situation been like to see this year?
Yeah, Thorne has always been the guy that started every game. Robbie has always been the guy to come in certain situations. Starting the season off, it was that way. And I think once we got the Cal after the first series, Robbie started coming in the game. It didn't seem to be an alternating deal with both of them up until last week. Coach Freeze said he's seen enough of it. He wants one of those guys to kind of take the helm, go ahead and take control of the offense, take control of the team. And last week, since Thorne has been the starter for most of these games, he pretty much let Thorne have his first opportunity was against Mississippi State. So it was either time for Thorne to put up or shut up. And that's the exact words that he said. And, Thorne went out there. He had a really good game last week. He got involved early in the game in the passing game with the receivers. They got on the same page. So the ball got thrown around to 11 different receivers. And I thought that was, really, really good. 11 different people touched the ball in the passing game. As you know, Billy, that's where we've been struggling at the most is, we haven't been able to throw the ball. I think we went for a while there. It's like 5 or 6 games without even having over 100 yards passing against a Power 5 opponent. That's almost unheard of in these times. So we were struggling in the passing game, and hopefully we found something there last week. And then Robbie has always been a guy that's very energetic. He's very athletic. He can kind of take over a game sometimes just with his legs. The thing with him was his throwing and everything like that. But I felt towards the end of last season, he gotten better as a passer. And then this season, you haven't really had a chance to see a lot of it because he hasn't had a lot of opportunities to pass the ball. He'll come in games where he throw 4 or 5 attempts, but as well as as I know, that's not enough to get into any rhythm as a passing quarterback. So I think some of his interceptions come off forcing the ball because he feel like he got to make something happen in that area. When it comes to Thorne, I think Thorne came in here and a lot of pressure was immediately surrounding him because he's supposed to be this guy that's come from Michigan State. He has all this pedigree of veteran experience and throwing the ball to Coleman that's now at Florida State. And I think people realize now how big to have Coleman as your receiver was to him. And I think him trying to live up to some of those expectations might have put a little bit of pressure on him to the point that he couldn't. I think he was playing pressure, and then he's not used to playing in a quarterback alternating system. And I don't think either one of those guys wanted to be in that type of system, but that's just the way it played out early part of the year.
All right, let's go defensively. It's interesting. Elijah McAllister played at Vanderbilt last year.
Yeah.
He was actually at Vanderbilt for a long time. And then Donovan Kaufman, I think at safety, he was a Vanderbilt commit originally, played his freshman year there. Then he's at Auburn. I look at this Auburn defense, Jason, and I mean, you've been there at every game, active, create takeaways. They just cause havoc. And you saw them in that Georgia game really frustrate the Bulldogs at home. I know that Jordan Hare atmosphere, as can play a big difference. And, it's been a fun defense to watch. They've been in some low-scoring games. I know they gave up some points there to LSU, but that Ole Miss game, they kept that Ole Miss offense fairly in check. So when you look at this defense, what impresses you most, and how good do you feel about them here coming to Nashville?
Yeah, you talked about Elijah and Donovan, 2 great guys. Both, like I say, have Vanderbilt pedigree. Vanderbilt's a well-known school, and, they always have high character guys. And, those guys came over to Auburn, man, it was just like, they was welcome with open arms just because of the simple fact that their character meets their athletic ability. Nowadays it's hard to find that, man. Like some of these kids just stuck on themselves, and if you don't immediately make them a starter and all that type of stuff, they just kind of go in the tank or in the transfer. But these guys, man, they're built different, and first and foremost. But I say our defense, though, they're tenacious defense. What I mean by that is they like to fly around. We have an active secondary, who likes to get their hands on the ball, starting with Jalen Simpson, Zion Puckett. DJ James has had a couple tipped interceptions he's gotten this year. Keontae Scott, to me, is the hybrid for us. This guy, he missed like 4 weeks, and we missed him dearly. We missed him in the Georgia game. We wish we could have had him because I think he makes a difference in the Brock Bowers situation because that's who he would have been covering. And, but this secondary, man, they like to get active in the blitz game as well. They created some turnovers this year, some hits on some quarterbacks. To me, that's our strength of our team. It's our secondary. But then you talk about, our guys up front. Keldrick Falk has been a true freshman. Is a kid that's, I think, learned a lot from Elijah. Since he's had the opportunity to get a chance to start. Losing Mosea, transfer from Maryland, hurt us big time with depth. And but now this kid is having to step in there and get his feet wet, which I think is really good for him in his first year. Coach Roberts does a really good job of enthusiasm these kids. What I mean by that is they play with so much energy. It's only one game I've seen that's not play with energy defensively this year, and that was LSU. And LSU just looked like a machine, and we
And they've
feel
done
like,
that a lot.
yeah, he done that a lot. We just feel like we wasn't even on the field, So, but other than that, though, these guys have done a really good job of creating turnovers. 17 of the last 18 games, or 17 games in a row now, they've created a turnover.
Whew, that's impressive. And you look at that defense, they that has kept them in some of these games, and so I think that's an interesting. You could expect a low scoring game, on Saturday between Vanderbilt and Auburn. Speaking of Vanderbilt, I think it's interesting looking at the kind of the series history. I think we talked earlier. They haven't played a ton since even since 2003. I think you played them a couple of times there in the early 2000s. And Hugh Freeze, I think it was early this week, basically said this is a scary matchup. And I think that got taken out of context because of some of the Twitter is it could be a cesspool sometimes, but
Right.
I think he has a point because of the construction. It's not an earlier kick. It is a 3:00 kick, but I think he has a little bit of a point there. When you look at this matchup, Jason, is there an area where Vanderbilt could expose Auburn and potentially have some success on Saturday?
Yeah, I would say just looking at the numbers on the paper, to me, Vanderbilt it's a similar situation offensively for us when it comes to the quarterbacks. Not
Mhm.
knowing who's going to really be the guy for most of the time kind of throws a wrinkle in for your defense because you have to take time and prepare for 2 or 3 guys. All 3 of your guys have played when it comes to quarterback. Seal, Swan, and Taylor, and everything. So as a defense, you have to say, okay, what are the things you're going to focus on and not get over, so you at the point you don't prepare because you're
Right.
trying to get ready for everything. So I think defensively for us, I think we have to be prepared for a running quarterback and a throwing quarterback. And you have to, and I say it's the same for Vandy, even though Ashford played limited last week. You just never know what's going to happen this week. I think it's definitely dedicated to what they do from a defense standpoint. But you talk about Auburn. Auburn loves to run the football. And, I see Vandy defense, y'all give up 174 yards
Yeah.
rushing. Auburn rushes for 186 a game. So to me, that's going to be the telltale story of if Auburn can run the football that way, then I think, we win the game. If Vandy somehow slows down our rushing attack and force us to have to put the ball in the air, which last week was our first time we've had over 100 yards, 150 yards passing, I think, in 7 Power 5 games, which is still mind-blowing. Can we do that on the road? We did that at home, but can we do it on the road when we're not in our environment, when things don't look comfortable or look the same? Because now, we're in Nashville, and Vanderbilt can't wait to get back home, after having a tough loss in Ole Miss last week. And so Vanderbilt always plays us tough up there. Every time I played in Nashville, it's always a tough game. So you can never look at the schedule. I mean, look at the record and say, "Oh man, it's a victory." Like, no, you got to go up there and fight your butts off. So Coach Freeze is right about that. If these guys go up there thinking that this is just an automatic win in a W column and don't show up, you could easily get disappointed. So for us, it's rushing the ball and against y'all defense. If y'all defense can slow us down running the ball, then I think that can cause some problems.
Jason, really appreciate the time. I would expect some Auburn fans up in Nashville, huh?
Yeah, Auburn travels well. We actually have a huge Auburn Nashville club. I remember when Auburn played Vanderbilt in basketball, it was a lot of people there.
Oh yeah.
And so I expect a lot of Auburn fans in Nashville this weekend. Nashville is a great city. A lot of people like to come visit. I've already been looking up some restaurants for Friday night. Trying to, I said I probably waited too late to get reservation. I forgot Friday night in Nashville. It's like,
Yeah, good luck.
yeah, good luck. So I'm gonna have to try to pull some screens, find some people I know. But yeah, I will say we're excited about coming to Nashville.
There's a couple there. Hall's Steakhouse is a
Yeah.
brand new one that's pretty popular, and then Kane Prime is pretty good as well. But
Okay.
hopefully you get in early enough.
Yeah. I might have to get on at 5:30 when they first opened. I'd have missed the prime
Jason,
spots already.
looking forward to it, man. 3:00 kickoff, Vanderbilt and Auburn on Saturday. Good luck on the call, and thanks for taking the time.
I appreciate it, Billy. Thank you.